Today I am going to talk about the benefits of group decision making systems first, and then I am talking about the processes of group decision making. Group decision support systems are actually a kind of electronic meeting systems or collaborative systems. These are used in organizations for those decisions which cannot be taken by a single individual, by a single manager, which require the participation of multiple managers, perhaps from several disciplines. So when such is the requirement, we cannot use a decision support system which supports only individual managers. In such cases, we have to go for group decision support systems. When these systems were developed, at that time, video conferencing tools like Zoom, GoToMeeting, these were not readily available. So at that time, group decision support systems fulfilled that purpose originally. There are several benefits of using group decision support systems, and these benefits are quite impressive. The first benefit of using GDSS is that communication is very precise. By precise, I mean that every participant is able to express his or her ideas exactly as it is in their brain. You can understand this if you think of a lecture without a PowerPoint versus a lecture with a PowerPoint. When a speaker is talking without a PowerPoint, without any whiteboard also, you are only listening to the words. Words may not be understood properly, or they may have ambiguous meanings. But when the lecture is supported by a whiteboard or a PowerPoint presentation, then precision automatically comes. Because the audience is getting inputs from audio as well as they are reading something. So in group decision support systems, communication becomes more precise. Second is that when managers use group decision support systems, automatically synergy develops. Synergy is energy which is the result of collaborative working. In all physical systems, synergy is seen at play. In our human body, there are multiple subsystems like the circulatory system, respiratory system, but they are all very well coordinated with one another, and that's why the whole body is able to function properly. Similarly, in organizations, when managers use group decision support system, they are able to collaborate better, and collaboration brings about synergy. Synergy gives more results than what the individual managers can achieve on their own. The third benefit is that group decision support systems lead to objective evaluation of ideas. In the absence of an electronic meeting place like GDSS, whenever a member or a participant gives any idea, there is a tendency for other members who are more dominant to simply ignore the suggestions of a junior or to override the suggestions of the junior. But with group decision support system, there is more of a democratic environment. The ideas are not simply rejected by the seniors, they are objectively evaluated. This is the third benefit of that. Fourth is that with the use of a GDSS, participation of individuals in the decision-making process becomes more. The reason for that is that people get stimulated by interacting with one another. They sort of get inspiration that when others are talking, when others are contributing to the decision-making process, why not me? So with that feeling, there is more participation. Just imagine a meeting in which no GDSS is being used, and let us say there are 4 or 5 very senior people and many more junior people in the meeting. You would have noticed that junior people hardly participate. This is the same situation like you find in a classroom. If in a classroom there are 4 or 5 faculty members who are discussing something, the students generally remain quiet. They don't participate. They don't feel confident enough. But if it is a meeting on GDSS, it is like a Zoom meeting. It's like an online meeting. Everybody has equal space there. So they have more tendency to participate in the decision making because they get stimulated by seeing others contributing to the decision making process. GDSS also promotes learning because by such interactions, the participants can learn from one another. Learning is not always from a textbook. In fact, learning from textbook is only in a educational institution. But learning continues all your life. And all your life when you are learning, you are not learning everything by participating in a continuing education program or attending courses. Many things you will be learning just from your seniors, from your peers, and sometimes even from your juniors. Yes, even that happens. So learning should not be misconstrued as learning is only from written matter or from textbooks. Learning is many times by watching others, by listening to others also. It's a very natural process. After all, when you are very, very small children, you don't learn from books. You learn what you are taught by your parents, teachers, and even brothers and sisters. So that kind of learning happens more readily when managers are participating in group decision making. In a group decision making scenario, there is less conformance pressure. I mean, you are not feeling that, okay, I am a junior and somebody else is a senior, therefore I should not talk. That kind of feeling doesn't come. Therefore, the time fragmentation is also avoided. Now, what is this concept of time fragmentation? In a offline meeting, how does the offline meeting happen? I hope you know how an offline meeting happens. Suppose an offline meeting is to be conducted, we announce that all the people have to meet in so and so hall, and they have to come by 2 p.m. So all the people reach there by 2 p.m. They sit at a conference table. Then the senior most person or the boss arrives and he says, okay, now today we are going to discuss this particular topic. Let us say the new campaign for our sales promotion for soft drinks. So when he says that, people are expected to participate. This is how an offline meeting happens. But on a GDSS, it's an online scenario. So you will not be going to a hall and assembling there and then start talking. You will be just given a message, maybe in a chat message or in a email, that the meeting starts at 2 p.m. and you are good. This is the link for that. Just like your online class. So when you participate in a online meeting like that, the time is not fragmented. In that earlier scenario, in the offline meeting, you are wasting time going to the hall, and then maybe some time is wasted in drinking coffee, serving coffee, smiling at each other. All this gets avoided when our meeting is electronic. So that's the meaning of less time fragmentation. That means time is getting utilized more effectively when our meeting is not face to face but online. And there is less attention blocking, because in an offline meeting, always there will be some people who are very dominant. They may not be always dominant because they know more. No, they are dominant many times just because it is their nature to dominate others, or just because they have a very loud voice in their throat. Others are not able to shout that much. So one person thinks, I can shout more and I can dominate others. This can happen in an offline meeting, but in an online meeting, this is just impossible. It's impossible. Everybody is having a microphone in the front. So everybody can talk equally loudly. Everybody can talk equally effectively. So in this kind of scenario, there is less chance of somebody blocking the attention of others just by trying to dominate. Then there is less individual domination. That is the next point. No particular individual or no group of individuals will be very easily able to dominate in an online meeting. Whereas in an offline meeting, this is very common. If you attend both several times, you will see the difference, that in an online meeting, there is more democratic participation, less domination, and less time is wasted. And less time is also wasted in socializing. In all offline meetings, which are face-to-face meetings, where people are sitting in a conference hall and listening to each other, there a lot of time gets wasted in things like serving snacks, drinking coffee, or just exchanging hellos, highs and byes. These are all part of the socializing process. But have you ever seen that happening in an online class? Never, no? Just see the difference yourself. When you come to an offline class like that, you have more tendency of meeting your friends, okay, what did you have for dinner yesterday? You may ask like that. But in an online class, have you ever asked that? No. That tendency doesn't come. So that way, there is less of socializing, less of time fragmentation when we use a group decision support system. And the last point that I have written there is instant polling and results. Now, when people meet, it is not always possible for them to totally agree on every point. Not possible. That's not human nature. There will be some disagreement. If any idea is discussed, some people will find it favorable, others will find it unfavorable. So, at the end, the chairman of the meeting or the speaker of the meeting, how does he take a decision? It is just like thinking of the national parliament. In the parliament also, there are multiple parties. The ruling party is there, they are occupying the treasury benches. Then there are so many opposition parties. So all have different opinions. On any bill which is under discussion, treasury bills will generally support it, opposition parties will find flaw in that. So how does the speaker of the parliament decide whether to accept it or not? Ultimately he has to go for polling. So kind of voting. So voting is generally done with an electronic voting machine. You can either say yes or no, or you can abstain. All that process in an offline scenario will be very time consuming. There is no way you can do it. But with an online process, it is instant. During your lockdown periods, I was very frequently conducting my online classes on Skype. And on Skype, that polling is provided. That facility is there. As soon as I finish the class, I can conduct a poll. Did you like today's class? How was the quality of the audio? How was the quality of the PowerPoint? Did you learn the following important points from the class? I could create such a poll just in 2 minutes. If you are not doing it on an online system, how will you do that? There is no way. You will have to perhaps make a questionnaire, take copies of that, give it to people, then analyze the responses. All that is very time consuming. So GDSS makes it very easy to get an instant polling done, and also the result is instant. The result comes automatically. So I come to know that out of 20 students, 15 said audio was good, 5 said audio had disturbance. I get the result very easily. It will not be possible in an offline system. So these are the benefits of using group decision support systems in organizations. Now, what are the actually processes which managers follow for arriving at decisions which require group participation? These are the processes which are followed for group decision making. The best process, the most preferred process is consensus. Consensus is where everybody is convinced one way or the other way. So there may be 2 courses of action open. Should we open a new store or should we not open a store? We discuss it. Some people give arguments in favor of opening a new store. Others give arguments and not in favor of opening a new store. Then they try to convince one another. And at the end of the meeting, suppose we are able to convince everyone that a new store will be more beneficial for the company, that is the best solution. If you can arrive at a consensus, everything else can be avoided. There is no heartburn for anybody, and you are able to arrive at a decision which is equally acceptable to everyone. So, in group decision making, the best outcome that you can try for is always a consensus. If you can achieve that, wonderful. But it's not always possible. It is not always possible to convince everybody on the same idea. So when that is not possible, we have other methods which can be followed. So the second method is majority decision. Majority decision can be followed like this. Suppose there are 9 participants in the meeting and 5 of them are in favor of it, 4 of them are against. So majority is 5, and therefore we will say, okay, we are following the decision which is acceptable to the majority, and minority has to follow it now. Fine. As a methodology, it seems to be okay. But just imagine what happens to the psychology of the people. You are one of those 4. You are one of those 4 who are convinced that this is a bad decision. But the company has taken the decision which is preferred by the remaining 5 people. Will you be able to wholeheartedly cooperate in such a decision? No. See, human beings are not robots. Human beings have their own psychology. So majority decision seems to be quite justified, but it has its problems because it leads to unwilling participation of many employees. And when there is unwilling participation, the results cannot be spectacular. They cannot be very impressive. Then the second method is voting based. In voting based, the voting is always secret voting. We call it secret polling. So you could be doing it with a secret ballot using a questionnaire, or you could be doing it with voting machines. In our Indian Parliament, we use voting machines. So there are 3 buttons on that: yes, no, abstain. So when we do voting with either a voting machine or with questionnaires, then the identity of the people who are in favor and who are opposed will not be known. So let us say you were in favor, nobody knows that you have favored a decision. If you are against, nobody knows that you are against. In such cases, the heartburn of the people whose viewpoint has been rejected is less. So that way, this removes to some extent the discontentment which is generated by direct majority decision imposition. Then the third method is plurality. Plurality is not the same thing as majority decision. Plurality happens when there are multiple blocks of people or multiple groups of people in the same organization, and there we are not able to get a majority from any side. Look at the situation like this. In the group there are, let us say, 20 people. 20 people, and 5 are of one opinion, 4 have another opinion, 6 have another opinion, 3 are of some other opinion, and so on. So majority actually would mean 11 out of 20. But 11 is not in any of these groups. So in that case, we are actually selecting that point of view which is followed by the largest number of people, even though they are not in majority. In India, our elections in states are like that. There will be 7 parties, and the party which wins, the party which actually forms the government, will not have a majority. It is only the largest single party. Largest single party means actually they must have got only 30% votes. Only 30% votes here. But since others are at 25, 27, 21, 10, this party which won 31% votes here gets a chance to form the government. So this method is decision making based on plurality. Next is range voting. Range voting is again very different from majority voting as well as plurality voting. It is a totally different methodology. How it happens? Let us say there are five different things which have been proposed: A, B, C, D, and E. Now, all the participants, they are supposed to vote how many marks they will give to A, B, C, D, and E. And the marks are on a scale of 1 to 5. So your voting will be like this. When you are saying, you are giving your opinion, you will say, A, I give 5 marks, B, I give 0, C, I give 1, D, I give 2, and E, I give 3. Like that everybody gives. Then these scores are added up. When you add up these scores, you may find that the alternative 3 gets the total highest overall mark. So when a decision is taken like that, that is the method of range voting. You will notice that in statistics, this concept is already there. This is the concept of Likert scale. Likert scale is a 5-point scale, 1 to 5. So when we use like that, that method is the range voting method. Next is Delphi method. Delphi method is again a very popular method, and it has been used very successfully, especially in Japanese organizations. Actually, Japanese organizations were the pioneers in using Delphi. So, in Delphi method, the method is collaborative forecasting. Therefore, this method is also used for technological forecasting, and sometimes even for sales forecasting in marketing, when your product is absolutely novel, very new product for which you don't have past sales data, where you can use regression analysis or time series analysis. You can't use that because there is simply no past data at all. And you are also not able to do forecasting based upon environmental scanning because you are not very sure which are the environmental factors, economic or non-economic, which will have a bearing on the sale of this product. So there, how do you do? There the method used is Delphi method. It's just like technological forecasting. So in that, collaborative forecasting is done. That means every group is asked to give their forecast as well as the assumptions. Assumptions are later reconciled. The differences are narrowed down. So ultimately you get a forecast which is almost like a consensus. So this becomes in the last stage, Delphi actually leads to a consensus by reconciling the assumptions. Then we have the method of participative decision making. Participative decision making is only possible in those circumstances where the senior most person or the boss allows the subordinates to participate. And let me tell you, this doesn't always happen. It doesn't always happen. In many cases, the boss is very dominant and the boss feels that I am always right, my subordinates are always wrong, I am always right, so whatever I feel must be implemented. With that kind of attitude, you can't have participative decision making. Impossible. Participative decision making requires that you must be able to listen to others, you must be able to objectively evaluate their ideas also, and then take a decision. So when boss or the superior person or the senior most person in the group, when they are so democratic, then participative decision making can be done. Next method which I have written there is decision engineering. This is a very scientific method. Very scientific method, because here we don't take a decision either based on individual domination or on the basis of voting. Here we are using a model. That model could be a mathematical model, a statistical model, a simulational model, a probability model, whatever. Some model is created, and by feeding input data into that model, you get the answer. So there is no question of anybody getting a heartburn that my idea has been rejected, and nobody gets a feeling that in the voting my group has lost, other group has won. All that doesn't happen, because this is a perfectly rational, quantitative method of arriving at a judgment. And there is one more concept which is, a little difficult to capture and little difficult to explain also. That is called dotmocracy. DOTMOCRACY. Now, what is dotmocracy? The meaning of dotmocracy is that in this, the large groups, so there may be 10 groups, among them 4 are the large groups. These large groups, they collectively brainstorm the idea, and then they arrive at the decision. So that thing is called dotmocracy. It's not very popular, but all the same, that is also one of the methods which can be used for decision making in groups. The research for GDSS was originally a collaboration between US Department of Defense and IBM. So from that you can understand that this is a field in which information technology has been used very effectively right from beginning. So US Department of Defense needed decision making in several areas, like in purchase of missiles, purchase of fighters, specifications of bombers, and they took the help of IBM, which is essentially a technology company, to create the GDSS originally. And the scientist who is given the largest credit for development of GDSS initially is Dr. Jerry Wagner. Jerry Wagner was at that time the engineer in a small company called Vision Quest. And this Dr. Jerry Wagner later joined University of Texas, Austin campus. University of Texas has several campuses, and one of them is the Austin campus. In that, Dr. Jerry Wagner shifted later. There he continued the research on GDSS systems, and that's how we got the first GDSS systems in the world. The commercial software products which are used as group decision support systems, there are many now. Originally, I told you the development was by IBM and University of Texas, but now in the market there are several commercially available GDS systems available, like Spilter, Facilitate.com, MeetingSphere, etc. There is also one very interesting name called Power Noodle, like Maggi noodles. Power Noodle is also one of the products. So these are the products which are commercially available group decision support systems. Why I am mentioning this is, in your company where you are going to work, suppose you decide to implement a group decision support system, it is not that you have to develop it from scratch. You do not have to hire software development professionals to hire it. There are commercially available solutions which you can straight away procure and start using. So we shall start.